It was one of those nights, you know the kind. Rain lashing against the windows, the wind howling a lonely tune, and the kind of deep, bone-chilling cold that seeps right through the walls. I was curled up on my sofa, wrapped in a thick wool blanket, a half-empty mug of tea growing cold on the coffee table beside me. The living room was dark, save for the occasional flash of lightning that briefly illuminated the furniture, casting long, distorted shadows that danced like specters. I wasn't watching anything. The TV was off. Or at least I thought it was. That's when it started. A low hum, barely audible over the storm. At first, I dismissed it as the old refrigerator in the kitchen or maybe the wind whistling through a crack in the window frame. But the sound persisted, growing steadily from a whisper to a definite electronic buzz. My eyes were drawn to the television screen across the room. It was an old, bulky CRT set I'd inherited from my grandparents, a relic from a bygone era that I kept mostly for sentimental value. The screen, which had been a void of polished black glass just moments before, was now flickering to life. It wasn't a channel, it was static. A swirling, chaotic blizzard of black and white pixels, hissing and crackling like a digital campfire. I frowned, reaching for the remote on the arm of the sofa. My finger hovered over the power button. I was sure I had turned it off. I distinctly remembered the soft click of the button and the screen collapsing into a single white dot before disappearing. Maybe the storm had caused a power surge. It was the only logical explanation. I was about to press the button when something made me pause. A pattern. Within the random, frenetic dance of the static, something was trying to form. It was subtle at first, like finding a face in the clouds. A fleeting suggestion of a shape, an ephemeral contour that vanished as quickly as it appeared. I leaned forward, my blanket slipping from my shoulders. The hissing sound from the speakers seemed to grow in intensity, matching the frantic beat of my own heart. Then the static began to coalesce. The random pixels started to pull together, drawn by some unseen force, swirling into a vortex in the center of the screen. The chaos was organizing itself. It was impossible, unnatural. It was like watching millions of tiny magnetic filings arrange themselves into a picture. And a picture is exactly what it was becoming. An image was emerging from the electronic snow, grainy and distorted, but undeniably there. It was a face. A woman's face. The features were indistinct, blurred by the shimmering static, but I could make out the basics. High cheekbones, a delicate nose, and a cascade of dark hair that seemed to ripple and flow with the electronic interference. But it was her eyes that held me captive. They were wide, dark pools of something I couldn't quite name. Fear. Anguish. They stared out from the screen, not at the room, but directly at me. It felt like she was looking right through the glass, through the 10 feet of empty space, and into my very soul. A cold dread, colder than the winter night outside, began to creep up my spine. My hand, still holding the remote, was trembling. This had to be a trick of the light, a figment of my overtired imagination, fueled by the gloomy weather. Maybe it was some obscure art house channel broadcasting late at night, a signal so weak it was barely cutting through the interference. I tried to rationalize it, to find a logical anchor in the sea of rising panic, but then her mouth opened. It was a slow, deliberate movement. Her lips, which had been a thin, pale line, parted. The static inside her mouth seemed to roil more intensely than anywhere else, a chaotic storm within the storm. And then she screamed. I heard nothing. The hissing of the static didn't change pitch or volume. The room remained filled with the same monotonous electronic buzz. It was a silent scream, a primal, desperate shriek that was conveyed entirely through her expression. Her eyes squeezed shut, her face contorted in a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. It was a scream that tore at her features, a soundless howl of agony that was more terrifying than any noise could ever be. I felt it in my gut, a sympathetic vibration of terror that made me want to scream along with her. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, a statue carved from fear. My gaze was locked on the silent, screaming face trapped within the television. I watched, horrified, as her image began to flicker violently. The static that formed her face seemed to be losing its cohesion, the picture threatening to dissolve back into random noise. Her silent scream intensified, her mouth gaping wider, as if she was fighting against the electronic tide that was pulling her apart. For a fleeting, insane moment, I felt a surge of pity for her, this ghost in the machine. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, her face was gone. The organized pixels scattered, exploding back into the chaotic blizzard of black and white. The screen was just static again. The hissing continued for another few seconds before the television abruptly clicked off, plunging the room back into near total darkness. The screen was black. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the storm and the frantic thumping in my chest. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, staring at the blank screen, my mind reeling. I finally managed to break the spell, scrambling for the lamp on the end table and flicking it on. The warm yellow light filled the room, chasing away the menacing shadows. It was just a living room. A sofa, a coffee table, a cold cup of tea, a dark television. Everything was normal, but I knew it wasn't. What I had seen was real. I spent the rest of the night with every light in the house on, jumping at every creak and groan of the old house settling. Sleep was out of the question. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her silent, agonizing scream replaying on the inside of my eyelids. The next morning, the storm had passed. Sunlight streamed through the windows, a welcome but surreal sight after the terrors of the night. I was exhausted, running on pure adrenaline and caffeine. I tried to convince myself it was all a bad dream, a waking nightmare. I unplugged the television, coiling the cord and shoving it behind the stand. I wasn't taking any chances. I stumbled into the bathroom to splash some cold water on my face, hoping to wash away the lingering dread. I leaned over the sink, turned on the tap, and cupped the icy water in my hands. As I brought it to my face, I glanced up at my reflection in the medicine cabinet mirror, and my heart stopped. For a split second, it wasn't my face staring back at me, it was hers. The woman from the static. Her face was there, superimposed over my own reflection, her features clearer now than they had been on the screen. The same high cheekbones, the same dark, flowing hair, and the same eyes, wide with that same soul-shattering terror. She was looking out from the mirror, her expression pleading. And then, just as she had on the television, her mouth opened in that horrifying, silent scream. I stumbled back, crashing into the shower door with a loud bang, my hands flying to my mouth to stifle my own scream. I blinked, my eyes wide with disbelief, and looked again. It was just my reflection. My own pale, terrified face stared back at me. The woman was gone, but the terror remained. It wasn't just the TV anymore. She was in the mirrors. Throughout the day, it kept happening. A fleeting glimpse in the rearview mirror as I drove to work, my heart lurching into my throat. Her face staring back from the polished chrome of the office elevator doors for a horrifying instant. I saw her in the reflection of my darkened computer monitor when it went to sleep, her silent scream playing out in the black screen. I saw her in shop windows, in puddles on the street, in the reflective surface of my own phone. Anywhere there was a reflection, she could appear. She was haunting my world, a silent, screaming passenger in my life. I started avoiding reflective surfaces, a task that is nearly impossible in the modern world. I felt like I was losing my mind, caught in a waking nightmare with no escape. She never made a sound. She never tried to touch me. She just appeared, screamed her silent scream of agony, and vanished. But her presence was a constant, terrifying weight on my soul. Who was she? What did she want from me? Was she a warning? A cry for help? Or was she trying to pull me into whatever silent, static hell she was trapped in? I don't have the answers. All I know is that I'm afraid to look at my own reflection now. I'm afraid of what I'll see. Because sometimes when I catch a glimpse of myself out of the corner of my eye, I see her face instead of my own, and I wonder how long until her silent scream becomes mine. Thanks for tuning in. If this story sent a chill down your spine, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. And be careful what you see in the static. You never know who might be watching back.